Welcome back to Sarah and Ji-sung's story. If you missed episode 1, I highly recommend you go watch it right away so you understand how a moment of heartbreak and rage led to something neither of them expected. Now, let's dive into what happens when two people from completely different worlds can no longer deny what's growing between them. Sarah tried to break the tension that had settled between them like a heavy fog. So, about earlier at the restaurant, the whole protective thing you did. You almost had me convinced it was genuine. Ji-sung's gaze sharpened, his dark eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that stole her breath. It wasn't an act. Sarah blinked, her heart stumbling over itself. Wait, what? He stood slowly, each movement deliberate and controlled, until he was standing barely a foot away. His height forced her to tilt her head back, and suddenly she became acutely aware of how the space between them felt charged, electric, dangerous. How her pulse was racing completely out of control. You keep forgetting something, Ji-sung said quietly, his voice low and edged with something dark. When people see you now, they see the woman I chose to protect. The woman I can't seem to stop thinking about. And I don't share what's mine. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Every instinct screamed at her to joke, to deflect, to build walls around her heart before it was too late. But her body had other ideas. Her heart hammered wildly against her ribs. Her lips parted involuntarily. Her skin tingled with awareness under the intensity of his gaze. He stepped closer. She backed into the kitchen counter, trapped between cold granite and his overwhelming presence. Ji-sung, she whispered, though she wasn't sure if it was a warning or an invitation, if she was asking him to stop or silently begging him to continue. His hand lifted, slow and deliberate, until his fingers brushed a curl away from her face. The touch was featherlight, barely there, but it sent electricity shooting down her spine like lightning. For one suspended moment, the world narrowed to just them. The nearness of his body, without quite touching. The heat of his gaze. The silent battle between desire and restraint playing out in the charged air between them. His eyes dropped briefly to her lips. Sarah's breath hitched audibly. If he leaned just a fraction closer, if she rose on her toes even slightly. Ji-sung froze. His hand lingered against her cheek a moment longer, his thumb brushing her skin with aching gentleness, then dropped. He stepped back abruptly, jaw tight, every muscle in his body tense with restraint. "This crosses lines I've spent years drawing," he said, his voice rougher than usual, strained. "Lines I can't afford to blur." Sarah swallowed hard, her body still buzzing with unfulfilled energy. "Tell me about it." Her voice came out breathless despite her attempt at sarcasm. Neither moved. The air between them remained thick, suffocating, intoxicating in its tension. Finally, Ji-sung turned away, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disrupting it completely. "Go to bed, Sarah. Please." Sarah wanted to argue, to demand he admit what just happened, to make him acknowledge that this wasn't one-sided. But her legs felt unsteady, her mind clouded with confusion and want. She pushed away from the counter, her heart still pounding violently, and walked back to the guest room without another word. But as she closed the door, pressing her back against it and sliding down to sit on the floor, she whispered to herself, "We're already crossing lines that were never supposed to exist." Sarah wasn't prepared for what happened 3 days later. She'd gone out that afternoon for something simple, coffee with a colleague from the international school where she taught. The streets of Seoul were alive with their usual energy, neon signs blinking even in daylight, and Sarah found herself almost at peace for the first time in weeks. And then she heard it. "Sarah?" Her blood turned to ice in her veins. That voice, that particular inflection, too familiar, too sharp, like a knife reopening a wound she thought was finally starting to heal. She turned slowly, dread pooling in her stomach, and there he was. Taming. Her taming. Except he wasn't hers anymore, had never really been hers. His expensive suit and confident smirk screamed corporate success. The life he'd built without her, probably with that coworker he'd been cheating with. "Taming," she said flatly, clutching her coffee cup like it could shield her from this encounter. His smile widened in that way she used to find charming, but now just looked smug. So it really is you. I heard rumors you were still in Seoul, but I didn't believe them. What are you doing here? Still teaching English to kids. Sarah forced a laugh that sounded hollow even to her own ears. Living my life without liars and cheaters. Turns out that's harder to find than I thought. His smirk faltered slightly. Sarah, come on. Don't be dramatic. We can still be mature about this, can't we? No, she snapped, finding her voice and her anger. You don't get to tell me how to react after 8 years of lies. We're done. We've been done. Now stay done. She turned to walk away, desperate to escape before the tears threatening at the corners of her eyes could fall. But she nearly collided with a solid chest. Ji-sung had appeared silently, as he always seemed to, dressed in his signature all-black attire, expensive casual wear that made him look like he'd stepped out of a dangerous movie. His eyes flicked from Sarah's pale face to Taemin's confused one, and something dark and dangerous settled over his features like a storm cloud. Sarah, Ji-sung said, his voice low and protective. Who is this? Sarah opened her mouth to explain, to defuse the situation before it escalated, but Taemin beat her to it with his characteristic arrogance. I'm Taemin, her ex-boyfriend. And you are. His tone was dismissive, already categorizing Ji-sung as unimportant. Ji-sung didn't answer right away. He just stepped forward with quiet authority, placing himself between Sarah and Taemin with such natural protectiveness that Taemin instinctively shifted back. When Ji-sung finally spoke, his tone was razor-sharp, cutting. I'm the man taking care of her now. The one who sees her value, something you clearly never managed. Taemin blinked, then had the audacity to laugh. Taking care of her? Sarah doesn't need taking care of. She's always been independent to a fault. Right, Sarah? Before Sarah could respond, before she could find words through the emotions choking her, Ji-sung reached back. His hand found hers, threading their fingers together with a grip that was firm, possessive, grounding, claiming. She doesn't need to prove anything to you, Ji-sung said coldly, each word precise and final. You already wasted enough of her life. Don't waste another second of her time. Taemin's smirk faltered under Ji-sung's unwavering glare. For the first time since Sarah had known him, Taemin seemed genuinely unsure, off balance.
Right.
Well, Taemin muttered, his confidence cracking. I'll be in Seoul for a few weeks. We should talk properly, Sarah. Catch up. Don't. Ji-sung snapped, his voice dropping lower, sharper, like the edge of a blade. The single word carried enough authority to make several passers-by glance over nervously. Taemin stiffened but didn't reply. He muttered something under his breath about overprotective strangers and walked off, the crowd swallowing him quickly. Sarah realized her hands were trembling violently. The coffee cup shook in her grip, liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. Ji-sung noticed immediately. Without a word, he took the cup from her and set it on a nearby ledge, then guided her to a quieter side street, still holding her hand like he refused to let go, like she might disappear if he released her. Are you all right? He asked, his voice softer now. The sharp edges smoothed away. Sarah swallowed hard, trying to find her voice. That was Taemin, the ex I told you about. The one who... I gathered. Ji-sung interrupted gently. His jaw tightened with barely suppressed anger. I gathered exactly who he was from the way you looked when you heard his voice. Sarah laughed shakily, the sound brittle. You didn't have to do that. The whole protective act. He's not worth the energy. Ji-sung's eyes burned into hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. It wasn't about him, Sarah. It never was. Her breath caught. His hand was still around hers, warm and firm and steady. For a moment, standing there in a side street in Seoul with people rushing past and the city humming around them, Sarah realized something terrifying and wonderful. Ji-sung wasn't just being kind to someone he'd forgiven. He was protecting her because she mattered to him. And the way he looked at her now, dark eyes intense and unguarded, like she was the only thing in focus in a blurred world, made her wonder if what was between them had ever been as simple as forgiveness and second chances. Sarah regretted insisting she was fine. She wasn't. After running into Taemin, her chest felt tight, constricted, like all the old scars had been ripped open with surgical precision. For months, she'd pictured this moment in various scenarios, facing him, being strong, showing him she'd moved on and thrived without him. And yet all it took was a smug grin and dismissive tone to make her feel small again, to resurrect every insecurity she'd thought she'd buried. But then Ji-sung had stepped in, had claimed her in front of Taemin without hesitation, had held her hand like it belonged in his. The memory made her skin buzz with something she couldn't quite name, something dangerous and thrilling. The next evening, Ji-sung's driver picked her up for a business dinner. Sarah had dressed carefully in a sleek emerald dress, simple but elegant, her curls falling in soft waves around her shoulders. Ji-sung had been quiet during the drive, but Sarah could feel the tension radiating from him like heat from a furnace. It wasn't until they stepped inside the upscale restaurant that she understood why. Taemin was there. Not alone. He stood beside a Korean businessman Ji-sung was apparently meeting, chatting like they were old friends, like he belonged in this world. Sarah froze mid-step, panic bubbling in her chest like acid.
No, no, no.
Not again. Ji-sung didn't hesitate. He slipped an arm around her waist without breaking stride, pulling her flush against his side in a gesture that was unmistakably possessive. His lips brushed her temple as he whispered for her ears only, "Smile. Don't let him win. Don't give him that power." Sarah's knees nearly gave out. Ji-sung's touch was steady, commanding, far too intimate for a man who operated in the shadows and kept everyone at arm's length. But she found herself leaning into him instinctively, drawing strength from his solid presence. "Mr. Park," Ji-sung greeted warmly, shaking the businessman's hand with practiced ease. Taemin's eyes darted between Ji-sung and Sarah, confusion and something darker flickering across his face. "And this is Sarah," Ji-sung said smoothly, his tone leaving absolutely no room for doubt or question. "She's very important to me." Sarah forced her sweetest smile, the one she used to practice in mirrors back in Lagos. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Park." For the next hour, Sarah played a role she was still learning, charming when necessary, poised despite her racing heart, laughing at Ji-sung's rare, dry observations that most people missed entirely. But it was Ji-sung who commanded the room. He touched her often, casually but deliberately, in ways that seemed natural to everyone watching. His hand brushed hers as he poured her water. His palm rested at the small of her back when introducing her. His fingers curled around hers under the table where no one could see, a secret anchor. And every single time Taemin looked at her, tried to catch her eye, Ji-sung's grip tightened possessively. When dessert arrived, Taemin finally cracked. "Sarah, can we talk? Alone, just for a minute?" Before Sarah could formulate a response, before panic could fully set in, Ji-sung leaned forward. His smile was polite, perfectly professional, but his eyes were glacial, dangerous. "Anything you need to say to Sarah, you can say in front of me. We don't keep secrets." Taemin bristled visibly. "You don't understand our history. Sarah and I have. You had your chance." Ji-sung cut in, voice like steel wrapped in silk. His hand slid over Sarah's on the table, covering it completely in a gesture that was unmistakably claiming. "She's moved on. I suggest you do the same." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Ji-sung's words weren't just for Taemin's benefit. They were for her too. And the way he said them, low and fierce and absolutely certain, made something deep inside her chest ache with longing. Taemin sputtered, his face flushing with embarrassment and anger. He made his excuses shortly after and left the restaurant with barely concealed fury. The table settled into slightly awkward silence. Mr. Park cleared his throat and smoothly changed the subject to business matters. Later, as they walked to the car through Seoul's glittering streets, Sarah finally found her voice. "You didn't have to go that far. The whole possessive declaration thing." Ji-sung stopped walking, turning to face her under the glow of streetlights. His eyes searched hers, intense and unreadable in the shifting shadows. "Didn't I?" His voice was quiet, but steady. Sarah's heart pounded against her ribs. It felt real. Too real. Ji-sung stepped closer. Close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. Could smell his cologne mixing with the cool night air. Maybe that's because it was real. Her breath hitched audibly. For one dizzying, impossible moment, she thought he would kiss her right there on the street, with soul buzzing around them and strangers passing by. His hand lifted, brushing the curve of her jaw with aching gentleness, deliberate and slow. But then the driver opened the car door with impeccable and terrible timing, breaking the spell completely. Ji-sung dropped his hand, his expression smoothing back into that unreadable mask. Sarah slid into the car, her pulse still racing wildly, her skin still tingling where he'd touched her. She stared out the window as they drove through the night, but all she could think was a truth she could no longer deny. We're not pretending anymore. Whatever this is, it stopped being pretend the moment he held my hand. Sarah lay awake that night, and it was becoming a serious problem. The guest room felt too quiet, the city lights flickering faintly through the curtains, but her mind absolutely refused to rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ji-sung at the restaurant, his hand covering hers on the table, his voice claiming her as important to him. The way he'd looked at Taemin like he wanted to physically remove him from her vicinity. She shouldn't have liked it. It was supposed to be about protecting her from an uncomfortable situation, about being kind to someone he'd forgiven for a mistake. But the truth was simpler and more dangerous. Her pulse had leapt when Ji-sung's fingers had slid over hers. Her breath had caught when he'd said she'd moved on with such absolute certainty. And the way he'd looked at her afterward, intense and unguarded. Sarah groaned, pressing a pillow over her face. This was bad. This was dangerous territory. She'd promised herself after Taemin that she wouldn't fall for anyone again, wouldn't give someone else the power to destroy her. Their arrangement was supposed to be simple. He helps her financially. She stays out of trouble. Everyone moves on. And yet here she was, replaying the warmth of his touch like it was a secret she wanted to keep forever. Finally, she gave up on sleep entirely and padded into the kitchen. She didn't expect her phone to buzz with a message at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Can't sleep either.
The text was from Ji-sung. Sarah stared at her screen, her heart doing something complicated. She typed back quickly, "Apparently insomnia is contagious." His response came almost immediately, "Coffee tomorrow morning. I know place." Sarah smiled despite herself, despite the lateness and the confusion, and the way her chest felt too tight. She typed back a simple, "Yes." The next morning, Sarah met Ji-sung at a small cafe tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place that clearly catered to locals rather than tourists. He was already there when she arrived, sitting at a corner table in casual clothes, dark jeans and a simple black Henley that somehow made him look more devastating than his expensive outfits. "Morning," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Morning," he replied, and something in his voice was softer than usual, less guarded. They ordered coffee and sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the early morning light streaming through the windows and painting everything gold. Finally, Sarah spoke. "About last night. Thank you for handling Taemin. I know it wasn't part of our deal." Ji-sung set his cup down, his dark eyes meeting hers steadily. "Sarah, I need you to understand something. What I did last night had nothing to do with any deal or arrangement." Her breath caught. Then what was it about? He was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming once against the table in a rare show of uncertainty. It was about not being able to stand the way he looked at you, like you were something he'd carelessly discarded and could pick back up whenever convenient. Sarah swallowed hard. "You barely know me." "I know enough," Ji-sung said quietly. "I know you moved across the world for someone who didn't deserve that sacrifice. I know you blamed yourself when he betrayed you. I know you're stronger than you think you are." Tears pricked at her eyes unexpectedly. "How do you know all that?" His lips curved in the faintest ghost of a smile. "Because I pay attention, Sarah. And because you matter to me more than you should." The confession hung in the air between them, heavy and real and impossible to take back. Sarah's heart raced. She wanted to make a joke, to deflect, to protect herself. But instead, she found herself saying, "You matter to me too. More than you should." Something shifted in Ji-sung's expression, his carefully maintained walls cracking just enough for her to see vulnerability underneath. "This is complicated," he said finally. Sarah laughed shakily. "That's putting it mildly." They finished their coffee in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged with possibility, with the acknowledgement that whatever was happening between them was real and terrifying and impossible to ignore anymore. As they left the cafe, Ji-sung's hand found hers naturally, their fingers intertwining like it was the most normal thing in the world. And Sarah realized with a mixture of fear and exhilaration that she was falling for him, had been falling for him since the moment he'd chosen mercy over revenge, kindness over violence. The only question was whether he was falling too. Over the next week, something shifted between them. Ji-sung started showing up when Sarah's classes ended, offering to drive her home even though it was completely out of his way. They'd grab dinner at small restaurants, the kind where no one recognized him and they could just be two people talking. Sarah learned things about him she'd never expected, that he'd been forced into his world young after his father's death, that he carried guilt about the path he'd chosen, that power had cost him every meaningful relationship he'd ever had. And Ji-sung learned about her. About growing up in Lagos feeling caught between tradition and modernity, about dreams of teaching that had gotten tangled up in love, about the fear that she'd wasted her youth on someone who'd never truly seen her. One evening, they were walking along the Honging Park, the city lights reflecting on them. Sarah had been quiet, lost in thought. "What are you thinking about?" Ji-sung asked gently. Sarah hesitated, then decided on honesty. "I'm thinking about how different my life would be if I hadn't deflated your tires that day." Ji-sung stopped walking, turning to face her. His expression was serious, thoughtful. "Do you regret it?" The question hung between them. Sarah looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who'd shown her more kindness and protection in weeks than Taemin had in 8 years. "No," she said softly. "I don't regret it at all. Even though it was technically a crime." His lips twitched. "Especially because it was technically a crime. It brought you into my life." Sarah's breath caught at the raw honesty in his voice. "You're not what I expected," she whispered. Ji-sung stepped closer, his hand coming up to brush a curl from her face in that gesture that was becoming dangerously familiar. "Neither are you. I expected to let you go and forget about you. Instead," he broke off, his jaw tightening. "Instead what?" Sarah whispered. "Instead, I can't stop thinking about you," he admitted, voice rough. "Can't stop wanting to know if you're okay, if you're happy. Can't stop wanting." He didn't finish the sentence. Instead, he closed the distance between them, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that was both gentle and desperate, sweet and hungry all at once. Sarah melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt as her entire world narrowed to this moment, this kiss, this man who'd somehow become everything. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Ji-sung rested his forehead against hers. "This is real, isn't it?" Sarah whispered. "This isn't just kindness or guilt or convenience." "This is terrifying," Ji-sung replied. "But yes, it's real." They stood there by the river, holding each other as the city moved around them. And Sarah knew with absolute certainty that her life had changed forever the day she deflated the wrong car. But things were never simple. 2 days later, Sarah received a call that made her blood run cold. Taemin had somehow gotten her new number. He wanted to meet, to talk things through properly, to apologize. Sarah's first instinct was to delete the message and block the number. But part of her, the part that had loved him for 8 years, wondered if she needed closure. She made the mistake of mentioning it to Ji-sung that evening. His reaction was immediate and visceral. "Absolutely not." Sarah blinked at the sharp tone. "Excuse me? You're not meeting him," Ji-sung said flatly, his jaw set in that stubborn line she was learning to recognize. "That's not your decision to make," Sarah replied, feeling her own stubbornness rise to match his. Ji-sung stood abruptly, pacing the small space of her apartment. "Sarah, he hurt you. He wasted 8 years of your life. What possible good could come from meeting him?" "Maybe I need to hear him apologize," Sarah said quietly. Maybe I need that closure to really move on. Something flashed in Ji-sung's eyes, something dark and possessive. Have you not moved on? The question hung between them, loaded and dangerous. Sarah stood, crossing to him. I have moved on. But that doesn't mean I don't deserve an apology for what he did. Ji-sung's hands clenched into fists at his sides. And what if hearing him apologize makes you forgive him? What if? He cut himself off, turning away. What if what? Sarah pressed, stepping closer. What if you realize you still love him? The words came out raw, vulnerable in a way she'd never heard from him. Sarah's heart clenched. She reached out, gently turning him to face her. Ji-sung, look at me. His eyes met hers, guarded but burning. I don't love Taemin, she said firmly. I don't think I have for a long time. I just didn't want to admit I'd wasted so much time on someone who didn't love me back. And now, his voice was quiet. Now I'm falling for someone who sees me, Sarah whispered. Really sees me. Someone who makes me feel valued and protected and… She didn't get to finish. Ji-sung kissed her hard and desperate, like he was trying to convince himself she was real, that this was real. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. Don't meet him. Please. Sarah considered, then slowly nodded. Okay, I won't. The relief in his expression was palpable. But what Sarah didn't tell him was that Taemin's message had said he'd be at a specific cafe the next afternoon, waiting, whether she agreed to come or not. And part of her wondered if she needed to face him one last time, not for closure, but to prove to herself that chapter was truly closed. The next afternoon, Sarah found herself standing outside the cafe Taemin had mentioned, her heart racing with nerves and second thoughts. She told herself she was just going to walk past, to prove to herself she could see him and feel nothing. But as she stood there, frozen on the sidewalk, the door opened. Taemin stepped out, and his face lit up when he saw her. Sarah, you came? I didn't agree to come, she said quickly. I was just… Please, he interrupted. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Against her better judgment, Sarah nodded. They sat at an outdoor table, soul bustling around them. Taemin ordered coffee she didn't touch. I was wrong, he started, and the words sounded rehearsed. About everything. About us. I threw away the best thing I ever had because I was scared of commitment, scared of disappointing you. Sarah listened, waiting to feel something. Anger, sadness, vindication. But there was only emptiness. I want another chance, Taemin continued. I know I don't deserve it, but these months without you have made me realize. Stop, Sarah interrupted gently. Just stop.
Taemin blinked, surprised.
You're right that you don't deserve another chance, Sarah said calmly. But not because of some cosmic justice. Because I don't want to give you one. Taemin's face fell. Sarah. For 8 years, I waited for you to see my value, she continued, finding strength in her own voice. I waited for you to choose me, to commit, to love me the way I deserved. And you never did. I was young, he protested. I was stupid. You were selfish, Sarah corrected. And maybe I was too, for staying so long. But I'm not that person anymore. Because of him? Taemin asked, bitterness creeping into his voice. That businessman? Sarah stood, gathering her bag. Because of me. I finally see my own worth. And you, Taemin, you'll never be enough for the woman I've become. She turned to leave, feeling lighter than she had in months. But as she walked away, she didn't see Ji-sung standing across the street, having followed her despite her promise. Having seen the entire encounter, including the moment Taemin reached for her hand. And the fury in his eyes was absolutely terrifying. Sarah walked back to her apartment in a daze, her confrontation with Taemin replaying in her mind. She'd done it. She'd finally told him the truth, finally closed that chapter of her life with her own words, her own power. She felt lighter, freer, like she'd shed a skin she'd been carrying for too long. But as she rounded the corner to her building, she saw him. Ji-sung stood leaning against his car, arms crossed, his expression darker than she'd ever seen it. Her stomach dropped. He knew. "You followed me," she said, stopping a few feet away. His jaw was tight, every muscle in his body tense. "You promised you wouldn't meet him." Sarah swallowed hard. "I know.
I'm sorry.
I just needed to." To what? His voice was controlled, but she could hear the fury beneath it. To hear his apology? To give him another chance? "No," Sarah said firmly, stepping closer. "To prove to myself that I didn't feel anything for him anymore. To close that door myself instead of letting someone else close it for me." Ji-sung's hands clenched into fists. "You could have told me. You could have asked me to come with you. I needed to do it alone," she said quietly. "Don't you understand? For 8 years, I let Taemin make my decisions. I needed to face him on my own terms." Something flickered in his eyes, the anger warring with understanding. "And I told him he'll never be enough for who I've become," Sarah said, her voice steady. "I told him I don't want another chance with him. Because the truth is, Ji-sung, I want." She broke off, suddenly afraid to finish the sentence. "What do you want?" His voice was rough, demanding. Sarah took a breath, gathering her courage. "I want you. Not because you saved me or helped me, but because you see me. Really see me. And that terrifies me. But it's also the most real thing I've felt in years." The tension in his shoulders eased slightly. He stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. "You terrify me too." Despite everything, Sarah laughed shakily. "We're quite a pair." Ji-sung's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "Don't lie to me again. If you need to do something, tell me. Trust me enough to tell me." "I will," she promised. "I'm sorry." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. And Sarah realized that this honesty and vulnerability and choosing each other despite fear, was what love actually looked like. The weeks that followed were different. Sarah and Ji-sung stopped pretending there were boundaries between them. He'd show up at her apartment with takeout after her late classes. She'd visit him at his office, bringing him coffee when he was buried in work. They talked about everything, about his mother who died when he was young, leaving him to navigate his father's dangerous world alone. About her dreams of opening her own language school someday. About fears and hopes, and all the small moments that made up a life. One evening, Sarah sat in Ji-sung's penthouse, the one he'd finally convinced her to visit. The view was breathtaking, souls sprawling out beneath them like a sea of lights. "This place is ridiculous," she said, curled up on his minimalist sofa. "It's like a fortress. Do you actually live here or just visit occasionally?" Ji-sung emerged from the kitchen with 2 glasses of wine. "I live here, though it's felt more like home these past few weeks." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Why is that?" "Because you've been here," he said simply, sitting beside her. Her heart did that complicated thing it always did around him. "You know, when I deflated your tires, I thought my life was over," Sarah said. Ji-sung's lips curved. "Technically, you thought you were deflating someone else's tires." "Don't ruin my moment with facts," Sarah said, swatting his arm. "I'm trying to be sentimental." He caught her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Then be sentimental." Sarah took a breath. "That day, I was so angry and hurt and lost. I thought I'd wasted 8 years on someone who didn't value me. But now I think maybe those 8 years led me exactly where I needed to be." "To my car?" Ji-sung asked, lips twitching. "To you," she corrected, her voice soft. Something shifted in his expression, the teasing falling away. "Sarah." "I'm falling in love with you," she interrupted, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I know it's fast and probably crazy, and we started in the strangest way possible, but I'm falling in love with you, and I needed you to know." For a moment, Ji-sung was completely still. Then he set down his wine glass and turned to face her fully. "Fast," he said quietly. "Sarah, I've been in love with you since the day you sat in my office, terrified but trying so hard to be brave. Since you got drunk and told me about your terrible ex. Since you looked at me like I was just a person, not a criminal or a threat." Her breath caught. "You love me?" "Completely," he said. "Terrifyingly." in a way that makes me want to break things when other men look at you." Despite the tears gathering in her eyes, Sarah laughed. "That's very romantic in a slightly unhinged way." Ji-sung smiled, really smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "You bring out the unhinged in me." He leaned in, kissing her softly, sweetly, like she was precious and worth protecting. And Sarah kissed him back, pouring everything she felt into it, all the fear and hope and love she'd been carrying. When they broke apart, she whispered, "So, what happens now?" "Now," Ji-sung said, his forehead resting against hers, "we stop being afraid. We choose each other every day." That sounds perfect.
And it was.
For weeks, they built something real together. But reality has a way of intruding on happiness. Ji-sung's business operations were expanding internationally, which meant longer hours, more risk, and less time together. Sarah threw herself into her teaching, picking up extra classes to save money for her dream of opening a school. They saw each other when they could, stolen moments that felt both precious and insufficient. One night, 3 months after they'd confessed their feelings, Sarah sat alone in her apartment. Ji-sung had canceled their dinner plans for the 3rd time that week, caught up in negotiations that couldn't wait. She understood.
She really did.
But understanding didn't make the loneliness easier. Her phone buzzed with a message. "I'm sorry. Tomorrow, I promise." Sarah stared at the text, a familiar ache settling in her chest. It reminded her too much of Taemin, of waiting and understanding, and always coming second to something else. She knew it was different. Ji-sung wasn't avoiding her. He was navigating a dangerous world that demanded his attention.
But the fear crept in anyway.
What if she was making the same mistake again? What if she was giving her heart to someone who couldn't fully give theirs back? The next evening, Ji-sung showed up at her door unexpectedly, looking exhausted but determined. "We need to talk," he said, and Sarah's stomach dropped. They sat on her small couch, the silence heavy between them. "I know I've been absent," Ji-sung started. "This expansion, these negotiations, it's consuming everything. And I hate that it's taking me away from you." "It's okay," Sarah said automatically. "I understand." "No," he interrupted firmly. "It's not okay, and I don't want you to just understand. I want you to be angry, to tell me when I'm not being present enough." Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. "I'm scared that I'm falling into the same pattern, putting someone else's needs above my own." Ji-sung's expression cracked with something painful. "I never want you to feel that way with me." "Then what do we do?" Sarah asked. "Because I can't be the understanding girlfriend who waits forever. I did that once, and it destroyed me." He took her hands in his. "You shouldn't wait. You should demand better from me. From anyone. You deserve someone who shows up, who makes you a priority." "Are you that person?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to be," Ji-sung said. "God, Sarah, I want to be. But I'm also navigating a world that doesn't forgive mistakes, and I don't know how to balance that yet." The honesty hurt, but it was also what she needed. "Then we figured out together," Sarah said finally. "But you have to talk to me. You can't just cancel and expect me to always understand without explanation." "You're right," he said. "I'm sorry. I got so caught up that I forgot the most important thing was coming home to you." Something in Sarah's chest loosened. They weren't perfect. This wasn't a fairy tale. But it was real, and they were choosing to work through it together. That was enough. The months passed. Ji-sung made changes, delegating more, protecting their time together fiercely. Sarah started planning her language school, and Ji-sung supported her dream with the same intensity he brought to his own work. They fought sometimes about schedules and expectations and the normal friction of two independent people building a life together. But they also laughed, supported each other, and slowly built something stronger than either had thought possible. One Saturday morning, exactly a year after Sarah had deflated his tires, she woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of movement in her kitchen. She padded out to find Ji-sung there, dressed casually, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen. "What's going on?" she asked, accepting the coffee he handed her. Ji-sung took a deep breath. A year ago today, you made the best mistake of both our lives. Sarah laughed. You mean when I committed a crime against your property? Exactly that crime, he said, a smile tugging at his lips. And I've been thinking about that day a lot lately. Her heart started to race. Oh. He set down his coffee and took her hands. Sarah, this year with you has been the best of my life. You've challenged me, supported me, made me laugh when I forgot how. You've shown me what it means to really choose someone every day. Ji-sung, she whispered, barely able to breathe. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sarah's eyes went wide. I know we started in the strangest way possible, he said, his voice shaking slightly. I know I'm not perfect, that my world is dangerous and complicated, and I probably always will be a little too controlling. That's true, Sarah managed, tears already gathering. But I love you, he continued. I love your fire and your kindness, and the way you never let me get away with anything. I love that you deflated my tires and changed my entire life. He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant diamond ring. So, Sarah Okonkwo, will you marry me? For real, forever, with no contracts or conditions, just us choosing each other every day. The tears spilled over as Sarah laughed and sobbed simultaneously.
Yes. God, yes.
Of course, yes. Ji-sung slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood, pulling her into a kiss that tasted like coffee and tears and the promise of forever. When they broke apart, Sarah was grinning through her tears. You know, everyone's going to ask how we met. Ji-sung smiled, that rare, full smile he reserved only for her. We'll tell them the truth, that you committed a crime and I fell in love with your passion. That's one way to tell a love story, Sarah laughed. It's our way, he said simply. And it was. They got married few months later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Sarah's mother flew in from Lagos, crying happy tears the entire time. Ji-sung's associates raised eyebrows but eventually accepted their boss's unconventional choice. Taemin sent a card they threw away without reading. Sarah opened her language school 2 years later, and Ji-sung was there for the ribbon cutting, pride evident in every line of his face. They fought and made up and built a life that was messy and real and absolutely theirs. And sometimes, when they drove past that underground parking garage, Sarah would laugh and Ji-sung would shake his head, both of them remembering the day anger and hurt and 4 deflated tires had led to the greatest love either had ever known. Because sometimes the best things in life come from our worst moments. Sometimes love finds you when you're at your lowest, covered in rage and regret. Sometimes all it takes is destroying the wrong car to find exactly the right person. Thank you for watching Sarah and Ji-sung's complete journey from beginning to end. What did you think of their story? Did it resonate with you? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're new here, welcome. Leave us a comment and tell us where you're watching from. If you enjoyed this love story, rate it from 0 to 10. Take a moment to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you don't miss our future releases. Until next time, see you soon.